Well, we better get started. Good evening, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day, and I hope everyone is doing really well tonight. Thank you for joining us today for the Farming Essentials Webinar 1. So owning or buying a farm, assessing what you want and have. So that's number 1 of our 6-part series today. My name is Lisa Rayner. I'm the Livestock Project Officer for the Stock Sense project, and I'm thrilled to be your host and facilitator throughout this series. And before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land which we are gathered this evening, or wherever you are in Australia. I know there are a few people all the way up in Queensland, which is really awesome to know. And I wish to pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging, and recognise their continuing connection to land and community. I'm from Wurundjeri country down here in Melbourne, so I welcome everyone here today, or Wominjeka, in the Woi Wurrung language. So please feel free to put in the chat where you are today, because I always like learning where everyone is from. Before we start and I introduce, I guess, what we do, I'd like to talk about who is or what is VFF Stock Sense. So not many people know about us, but Stock Sense is a project run by the Victorian Farmers Federation, and this project is funded by the Cattle Compensation Fund and the Sheep and Goat Compensation Fund. So what this is whenever someone sells cattle, sheep, goats, a bit of that money goes into a large pool, and this money is used for a variety of different projects. So research, development, and extension projects, and one of which is Stock Sense. So we were specifically established to help maintain and improve animal health, welfare, and biosecurity for all livestock owners, big to small. And we focus on really being community informed. So the reason why we've put this webinar series on is because there were so many people that we were talking to during this, the workshops that we were running, specifically targeting a lot of the new landowners, and they didn't really know where to start, and it was hard finding information specifically targeted to them. So we wanted to put something on that could be recorded and accessed no matter where you were in Victoria, and would be a really good starting point for everyone. So what do? We run webinars like this one. We also run practical workshops. So as you can see in the top left-hand corner, that was a workshop, on-farm workshop, that we were talking about farm infrastructure that we had in Bendigo. So if you're in the area and if you follow us, we might be coming to doing a workshop near you. We also develop fact sheets. So as you can see on the bottom right, we develop stuff that's relevant for any topic. So there was a lot of confusion around changes to the Livestock Management Act and biosecurity signage, so we developed a fact sheet specifically referencing that to make it really clear and concise. We also distribute a lot of related industry material through social media and our e-newsletter. So if you have any suggestions or topics that you'd like to see addressed in our workshops, or for us to create a fact sheet on, please let us know. We're always taking in that information and trying to cater to the audience at which we're funded for. So your feedback. I think when everyone registered for this series, you should have received a link for a pre-workshop survey. So this, like every project, we sort of evaluate and see where we're going, see if we're, hitting the mark, if you will. So this survey will help us understand your current knowledge and goals, and basically why you attended this webinar. And likewise, at the conclusion of this series in March, we'll provide you a link to a post-workshop survey. So this survey allows us to be able to see what went right, what went wrong, and basically get your really honest feedback of what worked and what didn't work and what you would like to see. And this is so beneficial for us because we use it for our next webinars, our workshops, and everything. So a lot of 2024 was actually used and planned from a lot of our feedback in our previous year. So your input will be basically help us continue to deliver really high quality, engaging content that is targeted for you guys. So your feedback is so invaluable to us. So I really encourage you to do the workshop survey, and we genuinely appreciate the time that you put in to complete it. So I'll send that to you after as well, just in case if you've missed the link. If you want to stay in touch with us, feel free to send us an email at stocksense@vff.org.au. If you have any questions, queries, want any clarification of what our workshops or event is going to look like, let us know. Or if you've had some incident on farm and want some clarification or contact to a district veterinary officer, we can help you with that as well. Please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. We're all there. We're across everything to keep up to date with our events and webinars like this. Any of our resources can also be found at vff.org.au/stocksense. So just to give you an idea of what the next 6 weeks is going to look like, it's running from Wednesday the 14th of February to 20th of March, running from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Same day every Wednesday. It will be recorded, so if you can't make it on that day, stuff comes up, it will be available. We will send you a recording, a PDF of the presentation, and basically any resources that we have referenced during the series. I guess today marks the beginning of that journey for the next 6 weeks, and throughout the Essential webinar series, we'll be covering a wide range of topics from experts like Malcolm, Dr. Chelsea Hare from Herd Solutions, Landcare, and we really encourage you to actively participate. So ask questions, put them in the chat. I will be basically, if something is referenced in the question and answer, I will be basically asking Malcolm that question and he can answer that live for you. We only have an hour and a half, so if there's anything that we can't address during the webinar, we'll try and get to or reference or get back to during the follow-up emails, or we'll try and reference it to the relevant webinar in the following 5 weeks. Because we only have an hour and a half and we've got a lot to cover. We're only scratching the surface. So once again, thank you for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm sort of coming on this journey too. I think I learn so much every single day and I am constantly learning. So I'm kind of following everyone along with you guys, even though I'm the host, because I'm constantly taking in and learning from new people. So without further ado, I want to introduce our presenter for the next 4 webinars, Malcolm J. Cock. Though I could probably introduce it about him myself and talk your ear off, I think I'll let Malcolm do the talking. So over to you, Malcolm.
Thanks, Lisa. Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed tonight. I'm Malcolm Cock. As a lucky farmer, I used to breed bulls. Now, as a consultant, they say I talk bull, but that's the way it goes with my name. Anyway, as a farmer, I've also had to wear many different hats, including this one. And I haven't got any hair because I had 3 daughters, but anyway, that's good. Anyway, I luckily grew up on a hobby farm near Melbourne. This farm was acquired by the government and is now parklands and a bicycle track along the Yarra River, surrounded by suburbia. From there, it was to Buchan in the far east Gippsland, where we had properties totaling 2,600 acres. It was a great environment to live in, but it was hard farming. After 33 years and following up our life plan, we sold up and bought a hobby farm of 260 acres in South Gippsland, which I call Farming Paradise, and started farm consulting at the same time. As I've worked overseas in countries like Scotland and Russia, I consider myself lucky that I was farming in Australia. We have it so much better, no matter about our droughts or floods or whatever it may be. I have an attitude of gratitude for having many people to help me along my journey: family, agriculture Victoria extension programs, and other industry programs such provided by MLA, Landcare, VFF, etc. I had a dream, and the steppes of was not it. I had a dream, and this was it. in South Gippsland, and I achieved that dream. Part of my dream was the love of working with animals and the environment. Well, most of those animals there I've worked with personally. Part of my dream was how exciting, rewarding, and challenging farming can be. Looking back at my farming career, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and there has been some bloody ugly times, I would do it all. Would I do it all again? A big yes, but with some changes. And these changes happening sooner than they did. The biggest change was getting help and learning to improve the big picture planning. For example, life planning, succession planning, to improve the big livestock enterprise mix, like having more sheep than cattle, that sort of thing. Instead of concentrating too much on the micro technicals, such as what fertilizer to use, even my love of genetics. Now, my aim is to pay back, to help people achieve success and enjoyment in their farming journey. And that's what I'm hoping to do tonight with you guys. This evening's session, we are going to cover what is wanted, what you want, what you have to work with, and assessing what are your resources. All this important foundation work is to help develop your strategies and actions to achieve your aims. And that's agreed aims if you've got partners. Now, the key principles I like to work with when doing planning and when actually working on the farm, no matter whether you are a hobby farmer, lifestyle farmer, peri-urban farmer, or a full-time farming business, small or large farm operation, starting out or in your sunset years like myself, these principles apply. The principles are: one, plan and enjoy the farming lifestyle. It took me 20 hard years of having my head down and bum up, just trying to survive. I was lucky enough to receive good advice and I learned to put my bum on the office chair and better use my head to plan well. And this resulted in profits every year, improved farming environment, and my family and I enjoying life a lot more. The second one is the old KISS factor with a bit of change. Keep it safe and simple. Keep it safe. Farming can be a big benefit to you and your family's well-being, but it's a risky occupation. I have a few scars to show for it. Keep it simple because of limited time, money, knowledge, and energy. And that's pretty universal. Number 3 is to keep that learning curve steep and get help. When I got back from Ag College, I thought I knew it all. I did pretty well up there, and unfortunately my father had to put up with me. But it was just the start of my learning curve. It's even got steeper as I've become a consultant. Again, I was lucky in that I was able to ask for and receive assistance. to get over the hard times and to make the most of positive changes. There is a lot of help out there for everyone. Number 4 principle I'd like to work with. If your main aim is to make a small fortune in farming, you will need to have a large one to start with. Farming can be a money pit. A lot of money stress is likely to occur if one does not plan, budget, and manage well the actions to achieve your aims. Developing or reviewing your dynamic aims. When I get new clients, I send them an information sheet with important questions on it. I hope you got yours. And even more so, I hope you're able to fill it in after discussing it. And it'd be great if you were able to send it back to Stock Sense, but it's mainly just for your use. My job as a consultant is to help clients achieve their aims. Therefore, I need to have a clear understanding of what their aims are now, and hopefully they're long-term ones. Their aims can and often do change. Okay, Lisa is going to facilitate you sharing your answers to question 1. That is your reasons for or dreams for having a farm. Over to you, Lisa.
Thanks, Malcolm. So I think everyone got, or hopefully in the first email, you got a sheet that basically outlines the 5 questions that we were talking about before. So we just wanted to get a gauge and see what people put for questions 1 and 2. So referencing that pre-webinar sheet that we were talking about, if everyone could log on to this, you can either scan the QR code that's just popped up on your screen now, or you can go to menti.com and use the code 54444610 and basically put in what you thought, or why did you get into farming? Why did you buy a farm? I guess there's so many different reasons, whether it's for the lifestyle, to get away from the city, to do it for the kids, to live more sustainably, you wanted to have animals. I think the range is really varied, and the responses should pop up onto here. So there you go. So it'll just pop up like that. And I guess it's a great way to see why everyone's done it and how sort of everyone's done the same thing or has done it for different reasons, and the variety that is out there. Ag education. So, Andy, you have a question. So I'm just going to unmute you for a second. Hopefully that's okay. Hey, Andy, how's it going? Not sure if, can you unmute yourself? If not, you can just type in the Q&A section if you've got a question. Beautiful. Lifestyle is seeming like the main response. Growing, kids. That's awesome. New challenge. Don't have a mic. If you want to just type in your answer, that'd be awesome. Or your question, and we'll try and answer it. Wow, lifestyle is becoming the main one. 21 responses. It'll keep growing. Malcolm, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, just taking it all in. Sustainability, yeah, that's great. That's a lot of them are pretty come across with from my clients. Definitely education. I haven't had that one before, so that's a great one. Definitely a good way of getting education in that area. Seeing improvements. I'm not sure. Improvements in what? I'm not sure on that one. Healthy lifestyle. It can be very healthy if you watch the do things well.
I know I wish I had a bigger veggie patch in my suburban home. I think that's the reason why I sort of, if I had a property, that lifestyle of growing your own food, knowing where your food comes from. I know a lot of people do that.
Yeah. Kids, definitely. It's a great life for kids. My girls certainly really appreciated it most of the time, except for when they had to help that.
Yep, that
And
sounds
even
about
then,
right.
they took on to doing that to a certain extent.
Learning
Um,
experience.
Livestock, well, that's one of my loves. Yeah, definitely. Grew up on a dairy farm, so I did too, as well. As
I
well
think
as
that's
a hobby
about,
farm. It was a serious hobby farm. Hobby farms can be serious or just a hobby as such, but my father went from being a hobby farm of 60 acres in Doncaster, Melbourne, and it ended up being 2,500 acres. So, it was very serious. So
um,
it can be setting a seed.
do you want to
Um,
move on to question number 2? I think that's about 23 responses is about as many as we're going to get.
yep,
So I'm just going to shift across. Thank you so much for everyone answering those questions. So we're just going to move into question number 2 on that pre-webinar info sheet was share your top answers from question 2. So what do you want most or like about your farm? And I guess for this one, where is there something or that you were looking for when you were buying your farm? Was it the soil? Was it the view? Was it the infrastructure? Or was there something else? Was it something particular that you wanted? Or even on your current property, is there something that you really enjoy about it and you've lived on it for a while and you go, that's what I really like. I didn't know, or maybe that's what I was looking for and I got it. Or maybe it changed to something else after you've lived there for a while. Yeah. I think location is a big one. I know people want to be, I know that area around places like Bendigo, Ballarat, Warrnambool, Hamilton. It's a bit of nature, bit of slice of paradise, but then you get to come back and close to the city.
privacy, yeah.
Yep. I I would like for my neighbors to be further away so I can appreciate that.
Community, yeah. I definitely appreciate
Mm,
that one. Location and view, yes. Freedom to enjoy, freedom, nature.
yeah.
Trying to keep
Mm.
these keep coming in and getting me
You got to keep up to it, don't you?
seasick. Yeah,
Location and community and nature seems to be the biggest one, Malcolm.
trees and wildlife. Don't know about that. Easy to manage. I like that one very much so, especially after anyway. Serenity. Bit of privacy. I like that one. I consider that's a fair bit to do with people pressure. People want, if they've got a high-powered job or they've got a job in the city or whatever it may be, they want to get away from people. It's people pressure. Views. Veggie patch. Yeah, well, yeah, it's a big veggie patch. What else have we got? One
Water
out in
security.
Melbourne. Yeah, the
I saw a
time for
few bit
Melbourne
of,
is quite a big
yeah,
one.
beautiful. That's still it's still growing and
Water
growing.
security. You've got a farm with good water security. You've got number one as far as I'm concerned. Yep.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for everyone responding to that. That's great.
There's some great response there. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. It's just nice to see why I guess people get into it, and all the different reasons for it. And that's awesome. Thank you. Okay, we'll shift on to the next one. This will be available, by the way. So this saves on the PDF version of the PowerPoint, and we'll share that with you guys after. So thank you so much.
That's
And
great.
back to you,
Thanks.
Malcolm.
Thanks a lot, Lisa, for that.
That's all right.
Much appreciate for everyone returning their reasons and dreams and what they like about their place or would like to have on their place. Okay. Now, on the same topic, when buying my hobby farm, my wife's wish was to be nearer to family. For me, after 33 years of full-time farming in Far East Gippsland, it helped me to make a detailed and prioritised wish list. It was a big help in me finding my best fit for my farming wants. I knew what I didn't want, and that was a crazy rainfall, which East Gippsland is famous for, rocks, steep hills, the snowy mountains, and pest and plants and animals. Because I had too much of these, I wanted my hobby farm to be very easy to manage. I wanted good water, number one, good soil, reliable rainfall, great environment. Big trees are a really good indicator of a good environment for growth. Also, I wanted undulating topography. That's hills and valleys and so forth, flats, but just undulating, not steep. Capital gain potential, approximately 200 acres. That's a hobby farm for me. And good farm infrastructure. And it needed to have a house. And always with me, the price is always a major consideration. It usually is cheaper to buy infrastructure already in place than it is to start with a bare paddock. And the least likely to have to worry about things like the council planning permits. They can be a nightmare. I hope you found the discussion and the writing down of your aims helpful. With this process, it is important that each individual lists their own dreams, aims, and points of priorities, must-haves, etc., before disclosing to other influencers. Respectfully discuss everyone's dreams and aims and work for consensus, at least on the main points. This is usually difficult because you are dealing with emotions. And I reckon good luck. This is a lot easier if there is only one person, one individual. There is no need for discussions, only with self. Let's look at the other three questions on this info sheet. Why a particular region? You came up with quite a those you listed there before, and location's a major one. Close to work, family, friends, schools, hospitals, community, train, could be an ag college, whatever. So, yep, it's location was very important. Great environment, that was also mentioned. Climate, the mountain, whether it's mountains, sea, flat, and you like the vegetation, the river. Other things that people liked, whether particularly if they're wanting to do serious farming, productivity of the area, the farming community, sale yards, the price of the area in the area, general area, and the further you get away from Melbourne, the cheaper it tends to become, and the scale or size of the farms. Now, question 4, what do you want to be doing in 5, 10, 15 years? I found this, what I call my life plan, or our life plan, and we've done our second one because we achieved the first one and ended up where we expected to be ended up, which is back in Melbourne. And farming is usually it's a long-term journey. So having a long-term view and dynamic plans, in other words, changeable plans, usually helps in short-term decision-making. So question 5, main limitations to achieve aims. This is universal. It's money, time, knowledge, energy. These are pretty, as I said, pretty universal. And one that is less disclosed, that I am sure occurs, lack of partner agreement and or enthusiasm. I suggest you review and discuss the questions in your information sheet again after this webinar. Plans need to be dynamic because things change. Remember, referring to the key principles through planning process while you are living the dream. You're more likely to enjoy. Anyway, plan and enjoy living the farming lifestyle. Keep it safe and simple. Keep the learning curve steep and get help. Making a small fortune from farming. First, start with a big one. In other words, manage your money. Now, the next slide. That we have a good idea of what you want. Let's have a look at what you have to work with. The main resources are people. Remember, it is people that make it or break it. People such as your family, friends, service personnel. As with all relationships, good, clear communications certainly helps. Next one, money, budget. And make sure, because you're in a volatile environment and farming, what you want to have include what ifs. You don't want to overextend. It's hard to make money in farming as money doesn't grow on trees. A what if example, commodity prices can drop quickly. E.g. last year, there was a 50% downturn in sheep and cattle prices. The upturn comes a lot slower. What ifs can be easy to put into your budget by adding a couple of columns. One's a percentage increase and the other percentage decrease on both income and expenditures. Obviously, expenditures usually go up a lot slower or down. Well, they never go down, but they seem to go much slower up than what income it goes down much quicker. Okay, and then your farm, of course, is a big resource. We're looking at that in the next couple of slides to come. Machinery, nice shiny tractor there. It is tempting for some to overcapitalise with toys. It's usually the boys. Select only machinery that is essential to meet your needs. Remember, two major aims are safety and enjoyment. And machinery is a dangerous, can be dangerous if you don't be careful. Hard to enjoy, it is hard to enjoy if you injure your back instead of using the tractor to lift something. Tools. Now, tools are essential for during maintenance or repairs, particularly for the water system. You can't do without water for long, so make sure you've got good, appropriate tools for repairing the water system. And also power is very handy to have, so I recommend and have one myself, a inverter or generator inverter for backup power. In the country, you tend to get power blackouts a bit more often than you do in the city, or some parts of the city anyway. So the main thing is to keep your tools, should be kept in a good working order and accessible, easily accessible, except for thieves. Got to watch out for those, because there's a fair bit of thievery, robbery goes on from farms, particularly hobby farms. Now, describing the natural climates features and then the built features on the farm. Built features I mean by, fences, sheds, whatever it may be. A good start is to walk. This is describing what your resources are. A good start is to walk or drive all over the farm, along the boundary to every part. Example, you can't see the rocks for grass from a distance. I know quite a few people that have bought a farm without doing this. And that's applied with houses in the Melbourne too during COVID. For the farm inspection, have a prepared map with at least boundary marked on it on a satellite A4 photograph and a template of feature headings on the clipboard, and you'll be able to find a template for that sort of feature headings. Take lots of photos of various, if not all, aspects. A good photograph is worth 1,000 words. It's also beneficial for monitoring developments and to give to service providers so they have a clear, so to speak, a clear picture of what they're dealing with. If you are buying a farm, it is best to go around with the vendor. If you have to have an agent, let them open the gates. And remember, the photographs on an agent's internet site will only show you the good aspects. It is important that you like what you see particularly when you're buying a farm, and see and feel about that farm. You may need to ask yourself, do I know enough to be able to make a good assessment to give confidence on decisions? If not, suggest you get some advice. Okay, now assessing resources, the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is a satellite photograph of an almost bare paddock of 40 hectares that a young couple bought. And this is a true story. And they hired me to help them to put their ideas into action. I sent them the usual info sheet. They filled it in and with what they wanted. So to my surprise, in the limitation question, they didn't put down lack of money. I told them about the small fortune saying, and they said that they had just came into a lot of money. I did a description, possible, next slide, assessment, possible actions and priorities report. I had another consultation with them and we fine-tuned what they wanted. I suggested they needed a budget, so I prepared one. They would have had to put in the entire infrastructure except for the boundary fence. and one subdivisional fence, I think it was. That's the water, and it had a dam, but there was a small puddle of water in that dam. That's all they had. So it would have meant a bore or a much bigger dam for catchment. The sheds, yards, stockyards, subdivision fencing, tracks, power, basic machinery, such as a ATV to get around the place and get the stock and so forth. And then they told me they wanted to build a house there as well. So after a few months, remember I did a budget for them. After a few months, and I would say quite a bit of discussion they had between themselves, they wisely decided to sell the property and buy a ready-made farm that they could afford. And to this day, they're very happy they did.
Malcolm, we just have a question come in.
Yep.
It said, where can we access accurate detailed maps and topography? They're trying to establish an access track up through heavy forests.
Okay.
They can't do the satellite imaging and sort of it's too dense.
Oh, I'm with you. Okay. The lands department on map. I didn't put that in actually on resources, but yeah, the lands department.
I'll make note
Victoria.
of that. Yep.
And get all sorts of contour maps, etc., and water and so forth.
Okay, I'll grab that link for you and I'll add it into the resources when we send it out later.
Yep, great. Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
No worries. And where are we up to?
Hold on. We just finished this slide. I'm going to move across to the farm description and assessment one.
Yeah.
So this one.
Okay, there are a lot of features that you have to look at when you're doing it. And the template will be sent out with other information. I like to do, so there's two of those. As I said, you'll see with the next slide, there's even more features which for you to record. Sorry, I've lost track where I am. Yeah, we're on 20 now. Right, now 21, I would like to do a SWOT. We can go into the SWOT. A SWOT, identifying and assessing the farm resources. It's a very handy planning tool, doing a SWOT. SWOT is S for strengths, W for weaknesses, O for opportunities, and threats, good old risks, threats, for T for threats. So it's hard to plan, manage something if you haven't first identified and described it well. Examples of strength is permanent river water source. A good neighbour is a fantastic water source. Fantastic resource as well, but that's a real strength. Bad neighbours are like hell. Weaknesses, well, there you go. A neighbour that is government bush, I found that to be a very weakness in a farms that I've been farming on. This could also be a strength, as mentioned before, if you don't mind pest animals like a lot of kangaroos on your farm. And some people love to see a kangaroo on the farm, but when you see 100, it's not so good. Opportunities we'll be covering next slide, and threats the slide after that. So, and once again, a sample example of a SWOT will be in the information section. So slide 22, we're on already. Being a positive person. This is an example of a SWOT opportunities. You could also call it a high-level action plan or list. The opportunities list could be compiled from any of the identified strengths, weaknesses, threats, or even the previous opportunities that you haven't started or completed. I also believe in balance in life, so lack of good risk management could mean the end of your dream. So don't put your head in the sand like some farmers, in fact, quite a few farmers, and you need to manage your threats. Sort of empowers you a bit more once you've really done a threats SWOT and management, identify them. It's about identifying them, the threats, limiting the chances of threats happening, and mitigating the consequences of if they occur or it occurs. A couple of threats examples: accident, death or injury can make farming very difficult. Biosecurity should be higher on this priority list that's on the slide, and that's just examples. And because it can have a huge consequence and the threat's real, it's going to happen at some stage or other. But whether we get the big one, like foot and mouth disease, it's going to be a major problem. And it's going to be a countrywide, as well as affect people individually, as well as the animal welfare situation. Anyway, I will be covering in more detail in the next webinar on the risk management side of things. Okay, doing an individual SWOT on the most important features of your farm can also be a helpful process. So, like, that's an individual SWOT. To me, the most important farm feature is all about water. Everything living needs it. Soil is the next one, is another essential requirement. Without it, you can't grow much unless you have hydroponics. I wish Australia had lots of soil like this in this picture, but we don't. So usually you have to enhance what we have. Erosion of soil needs to be managed, because once it's gone, it's gone. With new farms, farm buyers, I always suggest that you get to know your local community, farm environment, your infrastructure, and your stock for at least 12 months before you make any major decisions. In other words, don't be like a bull at a gate. Just take your time, get the feel of the place, get to know things, and that, at least you get to see 4 seasons, even if you're, particularly if you're in East Gippsland, seasons vary tremendously. So, but it does help to get an idea of what summer's like, what winter's like, etc. I'm assuming experienced farmers already know this, know their animals, know their stock, know their farm, but there's always a time and a need to have a full review. I have a lot of experience working with all these types of animals. The 3 photographs on the right of my photo are my photographs. It's a hobby of mine, particularly of stock. I used to have one great dog, my mate Jack Richard. He lived to 19 years of age, and he was a great working dog, a great mate. I had 400 stud cattle, 2,000 sheep, 600 goats, and too many horses and too many kangaroos. But Okay, remember the 4 guiding principles when selecting what type of stock and or crop and or orchard or any other enterprise such as agritourism you want on your farm. They're very good guiding principles I've found. Compile a priority list of what you like most as regards stock using your heart. Use your head to research each type of stock by doing a SWOT. Animals are all animals stock and therefore require the same basic water, feed and social contact. They will need different infrastructure like fencing. Fencing for goats can usually be used for all other stock because those goats are like Houdinis. Poor quality feed tends to be more suitable for beef cattle and goats than for sheep. Milking goats are a bit different. They're better quality for milking goats. Stockyards can be adapted to handle sheep, goats and cattle, particularly if you only have small numbers. I wouldn't recommend it if you got large numbers. But you could utilise sheep and goats in the same one.
I have a question, Malcolm.
Yes.
Would you recommend people finding, say once they get their farm, then they should consider what their farm is suitable for? Or if you have a particular stock in mind, then finding the right farm for it? I guess I'm thinking about which one comes first.
Chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
Yeah, quite a few people go for chooks actually, for chooks for eggs and or meat. I get quite a few hobby farmers that want to actually make a business of their farming. Yes, so chooks are to be considered, but which comes first, the egg or the chooks? The farm, well, it depends on how much you really want to do the farming lifestyle or you want to do the livestock. If you really, most important, want to do the livestock, I'd still be going for the farm first, and stock are very adaptable. I've even seen Bos Indicus type cattle in Siberia. They had to be housed, but whereas the Galloway cattle, which we had, they could be left outside, wintered outside. But there is, okay, so that's the main thing. If I would be buying the farm and then choosing the cattle or the animals that would suit that farm and your likes. You can manage most farms around, and this will be coming up later on. There is a question like, can I run shedding sheep down at Portland, for example? Yes, you can. Can I run merinos down there? I would not suggest it because their wool is not suitable for high rainfall areas. So it depends basically on what you want to do, but I'd be definitely looking at, it's easier to change stock than it is to change farms.
Gotcha.
And once you know what you've got, what you want, you can then see whether or not how you can manage it, and with the farm you've got, with the resources you've got, and that includes the farm. Okay.
Beautiful. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Now, if everyone's done this webinar, you will have a much greater basis to be able to help you make your decisions, like that question you just came up with, Lisa. It is, you can adapt your management to whatever stock you can have. We haven't got extremes of temperature here that other countries have. So you can manage whatever stock you want pretty well in most areas. Okay. With new farmers, I suggest that you don't go into breeding stock such as cows and calves and bulls. You would have steers for a number of years until you work on the 4 principle basis, and that is get your knowledge and skill levels up to be able to handle breeding stock compared to, say, steers or lambs that you just get on. You can buy shorn lambs and just fatten them up and send them off to market. It's very handy for that point of view. It's part of the principles of keeping it simple and safe as well comes into it, because breeding stock, bulls, you don't want to be around. You don't want to be around cows when they've got young calves. They can be protective, and that's just a natural instinct for cows. So I would not recommend going into breeding stock first up. Okay, a lot of people do, but I do not recommend it. And I'll go into more detail as regards in the next webinar as regards choosing stock. Okay. Because yeah, and what breeds and so forth like that. I've had experience with a lot of different breeds and of sheep and cattle and goats. So we hopefully can answer all your questions then. Now, there's other considerations always, but particularly before you buy or start up. With finance, get expert help. Accountant, financial advisor, who is familiar with farming, and that's most important. It certainly, it definitely helps anyway. Show your advisor what you want, aims, plans, and what resources you have. In other words, if you've carried out actions following this webinar, you've got all that or have all that in front of you, and you can what resources you have, and then ask them this question: can you advise me on the best way we can make this happen? Rather than go in there and say, well, what do I need to do? It makes a big difference, and you can tell the difference for the accountants that are, or financial advisors that are strategically thinking, rather than ones that are just doing tax returns. A big question that you can ask yourself and your advisor will be, are you going to have a hobby farm, or is it going to be a farming business? This will make a big difference to your decisions in the area of finances and taxes, and most likely, and pretty surely, lifestyle. In other words, what we've covered today is finding out what you want, what you have, and to a certain extent, what is possible. Back onto the finance, I started farming with a reasonable sized debt and a budget appropriate to, helping to start to pay it back and everything else like that. But with the first 5 years of major depression of stock prices, we bought deer and we were selling them for a tenth of their value for 5 years. Similar to the last year, where we saw debt, farm debt become, my farm debt became large because of basically it was 20 years of 18% interest. So we had to learn and work well with the bank manager. We even invited him to our Christmas end of year breakup party, but most importantly, we kept him well informed, and we had a good relationship with the bank. It's a bit different nowadays in some instances, in the fact that they send you off to a phone instead of having a manager. They send you to a hub on some of the banks. Very unsatisfactory from a business point of view. Bank loans, just a few hints. Have your well set out plans, budgets, including what ifs, that tick the boxes the bank wants ticked. If you have off-farm income, you are more likely to get the loan because you are more likely to be able to service the loan. Because it is hard to make profits farming, look to having interest-only loan. Capital gain is a consideration also here, because if you can have interest only, at least you're getting, if you do things right and you've bought in the right, similar good place, you're going to be improving your capital gain and your property as you go along. Budget for money but not only to buy, but to set up and for ongoing management. Shop around for total cost of loan for a given period. That means all fees as well as interest. And fees such as get out fees. You can be caught, if you want to change banks or you want to change your loan, or you're able, and you did come into a lot of money and you're able to pay it off, you don't want to have to be paying a get out fee. Remember principle 4, manage your money. Now on the tax side of things, we haven't got death tax yet, but I can tell you a story, a story about peri-urban farms. Now that term peri-urban is a term used for farms on the edge of cities by bureaucracy mainly. This is, for this demographic, land tax can be, putting it nicely, a major challenge, but in reality it can be hell or impossible. One example, I know someone I know has farmed 135 acres on edge of Melbourne for 35 years, and with the Green Wedge and urban development planning laws change, he was going to be charged land tax of $200,000 a year, plus the Shire rate increase as well. He didn't have the money to pay without having to sell his farm. On the positive side, there are no positive sides to taxes, generally speaking, but that's another discussion. I like to treat capital gain as a farm enterprise. You have to do a lot of things right to make money selling farm produce. It is more likely that you make most of your money when you sell the farm, but be aware of possible capital gains tax. Improving capital value of your property, you basically buy at low price and sell at high price, and strategically manage this enterprise like any other. A couple examples. Location, your property reputation. Reputation can be enhanced by just having your name and address number on a nice entrance, and that having a well-displayed number, address number and name, also helps when you have service people coming on, like the vet or anyone else, to find your property, or friends to find the property. I can't stress how it makes a big difference if you're trying to find a property, if it's easily displayed. And always, another way of getting your capital gain improved is to capital value improved, enhancing the environment. and the productivity of the farm. Always look at the cost benefit of considerations when doing development. Okay, we've got the community. I found the community a real plus when it comes to living in rural areas. For example, no traffic problems like Melbourne. I really regret that coming back to Melbourne. There seems to be a more common bond, particularly with sport and other positive events, and it shows up best when the worst is happening. For example, fires. Other considerations are schools. The school bus, if you can buy a property, for example, that's on the school bus line, it makes a big difference. Otherwise, there's the good old school runs morning and night. Or for us senior citizens, hospitals are another consideration. And there's quite a few people that are retiring to hobby type farms as well, or downsizing like I did. The topics touched on this evening require a lot more investigation. There is a lot of information out there and plenty of opportunities to learn more by joining farm discussion groups, internet, the good old internet, and the next Stock Sense webinar, etc. Before you feel overwhelmed, please ask for help. Now, resources, Google, you've got to, make sure you sieve the chaff from the wheat, because there's a lot of information out there. Make sure you've got your priorities right. And you want to, sorry, I've just lost track there for a bit. Anyway, yeah, what else we got? I jumped over a bit. Sorry about that. Now, some of those discussion groups are like Better Beef, Best Wool, Best Lamb, Land Care. Land Care is a great group and organisation, and it's got fantastic resources about the environment and your farm, like weeds and so forth. Okay, now I'm going to, yeah, I was going to read out what's on the slide, but I'll leave that to you guys. If you act, we'll go now a summary of tonight's webinar. If you act on the circle of action, that's the one on the right-hand side there. You want to do that, keeping in mind the 4 principles. You are far more likely to achieve your aims. It's putting a bit of structure into your thoughts, and it's great to put your thoughts down on paper so that it gets it out of your mind and you don't stay half asleep or half awake. You're going around and in your head. Now, getting it down on the paper also allows other people to be able to see clearly what your thoughts are, and it also helps when your memory starts to go that it's there, that you can revisit it and it's got an accurate record of what you were thinking. So clearly do the webinar, do the circle of actions and act on them and review them, and try to keep those 4 principles in mind. Take time to appreciate and celebrate life often. Your small wins, your big wins definitely, but even your small wins. it really appreciate the life and how good we've got it in Australia for farming and life's generally speaking. It's we're very lucky, and it's good to celebrate that as well. Now, use your head to achieve what your mind desires. It certainly has helped me along the way once I learned to use my head better. Getting down to what we wanted, what is wanted, and what you have to work with can be hard work. In the next webinar, the fun begins, because we're talking about what can be, mostly good old down to earth basic stuff. Now, the top one there is designing the farm layout. That's good fun doing that, and it's certainly with the tools we have now, like photographs and so forth, satellite imaging, and on Google you can get Google Pro. You can get mapping that goes back to 2000 and see previous seasons, what they're like in previous years, and the differences makes amazing. You can see where dams are nearly empty of water or overflowing, green or brown, depending on the season. It's a really great tool, that mapping program, Google Pro, and we'll recommend it for laying out your farm layout. Sorry. Okay. Now we've got so we've got that one, and then the next couple of slides contain lists of information. I challenge you to read what's on that list. Don't worry, it'll be sent to you. These emails will be sent out to you in PDF form, so you can revisit each of the slides and actually read what's on there. And that will be enhanced. It may have to become, that information may have to become a couple of slides, because there's a lot of links there for you. Okay, now to follow up after the 6 webinars, where really good stock sense, Lisa, they agreed on having a follow-up open forum, question forum day on April the 10th, which is really good. And therefore people can call in and ask any questions they like, and we will endeavour to answer the questions. If not, we'll be able to point you to where you might get answers, or we can look it up and get to information to you, as Lisa said before. Anyway, yeah, and there's I'll also be sending out. I've got a full report as regards assessing the farm and where to go and what improvements to put on it. That's just a sample one, and it'll be a really good resource for some people, particularly starting out. Anyway, that's about next. I would like to particularly thank Lisa and the VFF Stock Sense team for all the work entailed bringing this webinar series to you. Thank you all for attending, and if there's any questions, we've got some time still. It'd be great chance to ask them now. And
I just wanted to clarify,
Yep.
I guess, and go over, I think when you're setting the aims in that beginning sheet, it's sort of getting your head around starting everything. And I think that going through the farm assessment summary and the assessment report and the example report that you were talking about would be, I think, puts it all into context, talking about what we've all just discussed, and then seeing how it actually means when you're looking at a farm. Because I guess if you're looking at a property and you go, I guess I've researched what I want, even though that might be flexible, say cattle, sheep, goats, and then going onto the farm and actually going through those, the soil, the vegetation, the drainage, and all of that sort of stuff. I guess you've got to be on farm to put it into context of what that means in practice.
Definitely, you can do all the plans you like from the office desk, but or around the table, but you need to be on farm. If you're buying the farm, you need to do a really good assessment. And once you've got the farm, if you're doing the plans, you definitely need to be on the farm, and you need to go back there after you've done it and for another look at it to review it. And that sample one I've sent, that will be sent to you, does bring it all together, in my opinion. Would you say that, Lisa?
Yeah, it was really comprehensive, even seeing the farm maps and what it used to look like and what you wanted and sort of the restrictions and limitations that they had and the goals that they had. I think the context part really helped, because it's hard to think about all of this, the goals and the aims and what you want out of it, and then sort of tying it into the actual physical resources that you might have. Because I guess for me, if I wanted to, say, have an orchard, where to buy, when to buy is a big one. Do you recommend a particular season to actually look for property, or to know, say, if I'm looking for a particular livestock or enterprise, is there a particular time in the year that you should be looking at a property?
Um, that's where that Google Pro Maps come into it. As I said, you can trace it back, and you can see different different seasons. Not really. It's sort of it's you usually don't see a farm in the middle of a drought. Um, People sometimes they have to, but yeah, people like to sell farms and that I have a formula when I sold farms. Formula was that the general economy was good, the farming commodity prices was good, the season was good, and if they all came together, usually land prices are good. So obviously, when you're selling, you want to see it as best. Um, it's really good from the point of view of looking at a property. I've seen them in all different sort of shades and all different seasons properties, and assessed all different seasons on properties. With a trained eye, it doesn't seem to matter, because once again, I do research the area. I do research what the climate's like. Now, for East Gippsland, for example, at Buchan, we did all that research before we bought down there 50 years ago, whatever it was. And we had an average rainfall of, going back in inches nowadays, because it was 50 years ago. It was 30 inches a year, the average. And every month the year, it was 2.5 inches a month for every month. That was the average over 100 years. And we thought that's really good. We wanted a good rainfall like that and stuff like that. But the average never occurred. It was varied from, I think it might have varied from 12 inches of rain a year to 55. And quite often that rain came, you got, what did we get? 11 inches in 30 hours once. So averages don't help a lot. You need the mean variation. So getting back to your original question, I'd like to see the potential, but you do take into considerations that you are seeing it at its best possibly. That's the idea. But yeah, that's why you need to have a trained eye to assess it if you can.
Yep. I think we had a workshop in Bendigo where we visited a farm, and they were talking about knowing that they had enough water during the wet season, but they had to sort of build a big shed and have a lot of tanks available, because during the dry season you weren't going to be able to support the livestock that they wanted. So basically overestimating the amount of water you need is a pretty good thing to do, especially if you've got livestock to look after and you've got to think about the quality and the quantity of the water.
Definitely. You need to estimate what it's going to. You need to estimate the carrying capacity of the property is one. You need depending on what stock. Sheep obviously need a lot less than sheep. Need a lot less than cattle. You can run. But you can find those out. There's links to Agriculture Victoria will give you on the water side of things, where you can calculate how much water you need for certain stock and how much water you need catchment water, and for crops as well, such as blueberries. There was one property there that they wanted to grow blueberries, but they only had a small dam. Now, so it was a case of finding out how much water blueberries needed, and therefore they needed to put in a dam that was, if you can get a permit for it and such like that, or put a bore down. And so there is provision to be able to estimate, or calculate your water requirements for various things, and
Beautiful.
things should be there with Agriculture Victoria.
I've got a question pop up, and it's, what's the story behind the bull photograph behind you, Malcolm?
Well, my name's Cock, and that's a bull, so it's Cock and Bull. It's one of the bulls, one of our stud sires we had. As I mentioned before, we had the Galloway breed. I also bred stud Shorthorns and stud Angus, stud Perrendale sheep as well. But that's, it's a favourite bull of mine. And it's one of my favourite shots, actually, photographs. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any more questions, but if anyone has any questions for the next webinar or something that you'd like answered in the future, it might come to you, especially when we send you all the resources and the farm assessment summary and those sorts of things. You might have a few questions that pop up while reading that. Send us an email, or you can put it in maybe the next webinar, you can put it in the Q&A function. But next week, we'll be talking about farm layout and what facilities you need, basically what Malcolm was talking about before. That's going to be next Wednesday, exact same time, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. If you can't make it, don't worry about it. We'll make sure that the recording's available to everyone who's registered. If you know someone who said, oh, I can't make it at that time, I'm busy on a Wednesday night, let them know that this is going to be recorded. You can look at it in your own time. That's a great thing about technology. But yeah, thank you so much for everyone making the time today. I really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to seeing you everyone next week. So, and thank you, Malcolm. So everyone have a lovely evening, and we'll see you next week. Bye. Thank you.
Hi all. Thank you for coming.